not interested.
Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Overlord? Stick around and find out. Generic movie review music. Generic movie review music. Sorry, I didn't have anything themed to go with this. I don't watch enough World War II movies. I don't watch enough... I don't know, what would be like the iconic zombie-ish body horror type of theme? I mean, I could go with like the things like dope, but I mean, like, that's like, how long do you play that out until the theme is recognizable? I don't know, I got nothing. But I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, here with my uncut review of Overlord. The synopsis on IMDb reads, on the eve of D-Day, American paratroopers are dropped behind enemy lines to carry out a mission crucial to the invasion's success. But as they approach their target, they begin to realize there's more going on in this Nazi-occupied village than a simple military operation. They find themselves fighting against supernatural forces, part of a Nazi experiment. I wouldn't use that word supernatural. It's more, they lean much more, I would say, on sci-fi. They kind of give lip service briefly in two instances that I remember to there being kind of like a supernatural foundation to what's going on, but it's so brief you would totally be forgiven if you missed it and just thought of this as a sci-fi horror inspired, type of story. I think they're probably drawing from, I don't know my Hitler history separate enough from the legend that's built kind of around him of his interest in the occult. I believe that historically he was interested in the occult, but I think that there's a lot that's been made of that in fiction, and I'm not sure where that line falls between fiction and reality. But anyway, there's just brief references to that. From the vibe of this is period sci-fi action horror, which by itself is a really fairly unique combo, at least in movies, especially when they're trying to really take it seriously. So I really appreciated that. Just by itself, that won some points for me. The script I would describe as being event or scenario driven, though, rather than character driven, and I really prefer character driven stories no matter what genre we're in. I didn't really love or hate any of these characters. I invested in them only in the usual way of, say, like that vicarious horror movie protagonist kind of connection to, like, the, when they jump, you jump because you're kind of feeling a little bit like you're in that environment with them, and so you're reacting to the things that they're reacting to, but it's not that you necessarily care about them as a character. You're just kind of vicariously in that environment through, their experience. That was really the most investment that I had in this. It's a slow start for me in the beginning, and I had kind of like there was detachment from historical realism. They, for example, right off the bat, they've got soldiers getting ready on D-Day, flying in on a plane, and they are led by a commanding officer who's black. The main protagonist is a black soldier. Segregation in World War II among soldiers didn't officially end until 1948. Maybe it was kind of like, I don't know my history well enough to know, maybe it was dying off and, they were starting to integrate before 1948, and that was just when it officially ended by presidential order. But the fact that there was no one commenting on it, there was no racial tension, it was like it was just this non-issue. And I think that, if they're wanting to do something like that and kind of, I think you should comment on it. If you don't, then it's kind of like this, almost kind of like revisionist history, it feels a little bit. And then I'm wondering myself, well, how realistic is this whole thing? What else have they revised? Is there any sci-fi technology? What else is alternate about this history? And so I'm feeling detached from the groundedness of the experience, groundedness in history, which just contributes to a general lack of detachment on my part to what's happening in the story. And if you add to that, there was also like convenient scenario situations like locks and grates that were broken when the heroes needed them to be broken just by brute determination on their part, big padlocks with big chains, and there was soldier stupidity both on the Allied and Nazi sides, that also left me feeling just kind of detached. There was about, I would say, 20 minutes in the beginning of this movie that could have been cut, that was used for setup, but I think you could have just started with the soldiers on the ground in France on D-Day. We didn't need the whole plane thing. We didn't need really to have much of any interaction, with the commanding officer. There was just stuff at the beginning they were spending time on that, as I look back on the movie after it's done, I'm like, they didn't need that. They didn't need that in there. They could have just dropped us in, made us maybe wonder for a little bit what's going on. And I think that can be a great way to open a movie, to have the audience going, boy, what's this situation? What's going on? And we're leaning forward trying to figure things out. And maybe just a little bit of text that says, D-Day, 1944, France, or whatever like that. They could have done a lot less to set up the movie, and I think it would have helped to get me invested in the movie quicker, because we would have gotten to the horror elements faster. As it was, it took a little while to get there. There were very slow hints that we were moving in that direction, but it wasn't until about an hour in that it was like, okay, now we are in a horror movie of some kind. It was about the 1 hour mark. The sci-fi horror elements really ramped up. Again, not really much supernatural stuff, just kind of brief lip service, more of a sci-fi body horror type of experience. And I'm a big fan of body horror, like John Carpenter's The Thing is my favorite horror movie of all time. And so there was like stuff in here that was cringy and bizarre and just, that's just exactly my kind of thing. I would have preferred that body horror to escalate through the climax to get more bizarre, more insane, more like cringy, but the craziest body horror came, I would say, in the middle of the movie. The climax, by comparison, just kind of felt like a standard duke it out ending, really. So that was a little bit of a letdown, but I gotta say that, like, as a fan of body horror, I wasn't in general disappointed. This was a nice body horror experience for me. Moving on to the cast, the performances all felt solid to me. I just wish they would have had more to work with, in the script. It felt like they just had basically the first impression versions of their characters that they were given and that they were portraying. There was a child actor, I assume a French child actor, that was great for my tastes in terms of what he was asked to do. I think that's a hard balance to find, is to find the right child actor who's solid as an actor, and then also to script his moments in such a way that you're not asking more from him than that child actor is capable of. I think very often movies and TV shows will write things in scripts that just the child actor that they cast emotionally is not able to bring convincingly, And so I think it's better to meet halfway, get the best child actor you can, and then also bring down the bar of what you're asking them to do emotionally. And so I felt like this was really pretty solid in terms of how they navigated that. There was a supporting actor that really reminded me of Kurt Russell in his 1980s prime. I was looking at this guy, I was like, this guy really reminds me of Kurt Russell. I'll bet, just listening to him talk, I'll bet he could do a pretty good imitation of Kurt Russell too. Well, it turned out to be Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell's son. Found out in the credits. So can I just take a little detour here? As a aforementioned huge fan of John Carpenter's The Thing, and someone who also enjoyed the prequel that they made quite a bit, and would really like to see a sequel where they expand the lore and take that monster into more civilized areas and just blow that whole concept wide open. But how would you do that? How could you have the lady from the prequel, and how could you have the Kurt Russell character together at the same time? Either you'd have to jump the timeline forward and age her up with makeup, or you'd have to do some crazy visual effects or something to age Kurt Russell down. Here's the solution: Wyatt Russell. Let's have a still in the 1980s Thing sequel, one more, and have Wyatt Russell play his dad's character. Oh, all right. Detour ends. Moving on. Stunts and visuals. The visuals Largely practical makeup effects, with some limb/face removal for gore effects, disturbing body horror designs. They really pulled off that bizarre vibe that I care about in body horror with just a few hints of digital trickery. So for my taste, this is well done in that department, scratching those itches. And finally, is there anything of worthwhile moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this movie that might stimulate worthwhile thought or conversation? Well, in my opinion, not really. There is a brief beat where a character talks about the legend of some kind of jackal that drags souls to hell, and his fellow soldier asks, where do you get this stuff? And he said, the Bible. I'm like, the Bible? What? What in the Bible talks about a jackal that drags people's souls to hell? What in the world? And so I just thought either that character is supposed to be just like talking out of his butt, or the writers just decided to pull that idea and attach it to the Bible, out of the blue. So that was really weird. But nothing that really grabbed me and made me think, about anything, deeper or more worthwhile in the real world. I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, Redbox this one. It's going to start a little slow. Don't give up on it. You won't need to see this movie twice. It's not going to be that enjoyable to you, but it is going to be like a nice one-time body horror experience with some military action thrown in. Just be prepared to reinstall Wolfenstein on your PS4 when you're done, because you're definitely going to be in the mood to play it. All right, those are my rated R. Rated R for strong, bloody violence, disturbing images, language, and brief sexual content. Okay, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Please do like, share, subscribe, click that notification bell. Then join us over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.